5 plot twists that could happen in Stranger Things 5. Now in today's video, I'm going to be talking about these plot twists, but I'll be talking about more than 5 most probably because there's several I want to talk about. But we're going to go through each and every one that I have written down, and I'm going to give you my honest thoughts on whether I think it will happen and how significant I think it would be if it did happen. Before we get into the video, be sure to drop a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, join my Discord down below where we have almost 1,200 members. And we talk about Stranger Things every single day. And without further ado, let's get right into it. First plot twist I'm going to talk about is a pretty common one, but if it did happen, I mean, I think we would all be like, okay, we saw this happening, but it's still effing insane. I think that's what our genuine reactions would be, and it's that Will joins forces with Vecna after Vecna, persuades him, and it gets revealed that Will's still a spy and that Vecna still has control of his body, this, that, and the other. So basically, Will turns to the dark side against his will, essentially, because he wouldn't be aware that, he wouldn't be in his right mind, just like he was in season 2. And I think this is a really good possibility because of what they've said about Will going into season 5. And I know we've talked about this so much, but it's worth talking about because honestly, I feel like it's going to be the main premise of season 5 is that Will is going to be a main character in season 5, if not the main character, the most important character over Eleven, over Vecna, over Max, over everyone. Will's going to be the main focal point. And the duffers have talked about how this is a serious possibility, how he's going to have more screen time. And, there's been a lot of hype surrounding Will Byers' character, okay? And I think one of the reasons is because at the end of that season 4 episode, in season 4 episode 9, he grabbed his neck and we were all like, holy shit. Like, he still feels Vecna / the Mind Flayer / Henry Creel controlling him in some sort of way, or at least influencing his mind, I guess, or something, to where he senses that Vecna is still in his presence, which is something that he felt in season 2 when he was actually possessed and fully taken over. Now, I guess the difference this time compared to in season 2 is that in season 2, he legitimately got possessed. He was not familiar with this at all, and when he got possessed, the Mind Flayer literally took its particles and went through his throat into his body, and he was just the Mind Flayer basically in a human body. So it's not to the extent of that, but that was the Mind Flayer. Back then, we didn't even know that Vecna existed, but we do assume that Vecna controls the Mind Flayer, and that if that is the case, then I guess that was technically Vecna doing that to him back then. Now, if he possesses Will again and Will joins forces with Vecna, how does he do it this time? Is he going to take the Mind Flayer particles and put them in Will again, or is he already in control of Will and Will doesn't know it? Is he already or he just hasn't used his ability to control Will yet? Because if Will's still feeling that sensation, and we've talked about this so much, or at least I have, but it's so weird how Henry's Satoya chip, the chip that was preventing him from using powers in the Hawkins lab, is in the same spot where Will's feeling is. I mean, that is my whole theory on this, and this is getting off on a tangent, but not really, is that the reason why Vecna has targeted Will this entire time is because Will reminds him a lot of himself. Maybe Henry was also gay. He was a sensitive child, just like Victor Creel said, just like Joyce said about Will. They have all these parallels, and even the shots of the parallels, everything. They were both quiet. They were both drawing, everything about it. They have so many parallels. Maybe Henry saw himself in Will, and that's why he took him over. And that's why he was like, okay, I'm going to make him feel right here just because I felt right here too with my Satoya chip. All these certain things. I think that's why he targeted Will, because he sees himself in Will, and that's why there's all these similarities, right? So I think that's a little tangent. But anyways, if Vecna does convince Will, it would probably be against Will's will. It would probably be against what Will would actually want to do. He would pretty much just force Will to join forces with him because Will wouldn't have any control of his body if Vecna uses the Mind Flayer to possess him, or if Vecna completely just activates something to where he's just controlling Will and he just gets fully possessed. Either way, it would be a plot twist. It would be the main focal point of season 5 once again, and that would be them saying we're going back to the season 1 vibes. Well, in season 1, Will got taken into the Upside Down and everything. So I think that it's a good possibility. And as far as plot twists, shock value, I don't think it would be the most shocking plot twist because we're talking about it right now. and most probably the most shocking plot twist possible probably isn't on this list because we're not even thinking about it, and that's how shocked we would be. But I'd say it would still be shocking. It would just be like, okay, we kind of knew that was a possibility. Not that we saw it coming, but we knew it was a possibility, so it wasn't like insanely shocking. But the first plot twist I wanted to talk about was Will joining forces with Vecna and not really having control of his body and pretty much just getting possessed again by Vecna himself / the Mind Flayer. The next plot twist is a very similar, plot twist to the one I just talked about, but it's with Max. So this one would be Max wakes up from the coma in like episode 1 or 2, but she's not herself. And people are like, this is really weird. They're suspecting different things, and it's because Max got taken over by Vecna as well and gets turned into Vecna's spy. As far as shock value, like right away we'll talk about that. As far as shock value with Max turning into Vecna's spy rather than Will, I do think it would be more shocking than Will turning into Vecna's spy. Because we've already seen Will turn into Vecna's spy. He already has the connection and everything. Max is just in a coma. And Vecna didn't want to control Max or anything. He wanted to kill Max. So I think it would be more shocking from that standpoint. Do I think it'd be more likely than Will? No. So that's another thing. I think it'd be more shocking because of that as well. And how impactful would it be on the story? Like, how crazy would it be if Max ended up being Vecna's spy? I honestly wouldn't like it because I feel like Max has already been through a lot. So has Will. So that doesn't really make any sense. But she's literally like dead. So I'd rather her just be in a coma the entire time and fight Vecna through his mind, like she's in his mind somehow, and fight Vecna that way and help the group out that way, and 11 piggybacks and talks to Max, and then she wakes up in the end and it's all a happy ending. I'd probably rather have that than her waking up in like episode 1 or 2 and just turning into a full-on spy and hurting the group and all this stuff, and then potentially dying or waking up and then they have the happy ending. I would rather it just her not be involved in that storyline and it just be Will. But I do think it'd be more shocking than Will, so if they wanted a better plot twist, then this would be it. But I wouldn't like it as much as Will turning into Vecna's spy. The third plot twist I wanted to talk about is kind of an all-in-one scenario surrounding one particular character. And I know there's a certain part of the Stranger Things community that does not like me talking about this character, but it's Eddie Munson, okay? So a plot twist or a shock value wouldn't exist if he just returns in a flashback. Like, I think we're most likely, like, we're all sort of expecting that. We're all sort of expecting Eddie Munson to show up in a flashback. The plot twist that would shock the internet, shock the world, shock me is stuff that we have all talked about, but it actually comes true. And there's a few examples. Number 1, Eddie just returns in the form of a zombie-like character or like a possessed type character and is a part of Vecna's undead army. He's not Cass, but he's just a part of Vecna's undead army, maybe alongside Billy, maybe alongside Bob, etc., etc. That would be the first shocking plot twist. Eddie comes back, but is evil, and that even messes with more of the psyche of Dustin and all the people who were close to Eddie. And then the other plot twist would be he legitimately didn't die in the Upside Down and instead was basically being trained by Vecna this entire time, and he's actually Cass. And he's gonna fight alongside Vecna as Cass from D&D, and it's gonna be this crazy shit, and then he eventually turns against Vecna, stabs him, and then they win. I do not think that's gonna happen, and I almost don't want it to happen because it would almost be predictable. We're talking about it right now, we've talked about it so much. It would be predictable if he turned into Cass and then turned against Vecna and then you know, all that stuff. Like, that would kind of be underwhelming, but him being Cass in general, I think would be cool, but the predictable ending, I kind of wouldn't like. But that would be a serious plot twist. Now, what other ways could Eddie Munson return? Really no other way. It's either Cass or the Undead Army, and Undead Army would be cool. Cass would be cool if it was done right. I would honestly probably just rather him be, at this point, probably just rather him be the flashback. So nobody gets too mad and we still see Eddie Munson. Oh, the other possibility is that he's 10 from the lab and he has powers and he survived because he has powers. I still have people DMing me to this day saying that Eddie is 10 and they genuinely believe it, and they're sending me proof and this, that, and the other, and how it lines up with canon to D&D and all these clues, and they're pretty convincing when they're telling me, and I'm like, oh my god. I was called genuinely crazy for even believing that concept of Eddie Munson being 10 from the Hawkins lab, but apparently there's people out there who genuinely believe it and think it's gonna happen. I guess that's a possibility. I don't think it's gonna happen. Would I want it to happen? Yeah, I mean, why not? More powers, more chaos, more plot twists, of course. Shock value. So, shock value of possible Eddie Munson plot twist. Him being a flashback isn't really a plot twist, but I think it's gonna happen. Him being cast, shock value would be probably the most shock value out of any of these, honestly. Or at least top 3. And him being 10 with powers would be just as much as cast, if not more, and he's like a hero. That would be honestly more. That would probably be the most shock value out of any of these. And then him being a part of the Undead Army, shock value, you know, I guess a little bit, like a good amount, but not as much as him being cast or 10. Do I think he's gonna be anything other than the flashback? No, at this point. I mean, I think there's a possibility, but I think it's more likely that Eddie Munson just returns as a flashback in Stranger Things 5. This next one is really exciting, and I talk about it all the time. I've been talking about it more and more and more ever since the rumors of Callie returning have been popping up, but this is a plot twist inside of a plot twist inside of a plot twist, like legit, because the first plot twist is that Callie returns. That is a plot twist in my opinion. Most people wouldn't be expecting it, except us, because we're still talking about the show, but guys, 50 million people have watched this show. They're gonna be like, oh my god, isn't that the lady who was there 5 years ago? You know, we're talking about it as like, this is 8, she was in the lab, you know, we know everything about her. So, but in general, her returning, it would just be a plot twist because nobody would be expecting it. That's a casual viewer of the show. So that's a plot twist. And then her potentially teaming with Vecna would be another plot twist. So that's the second plot twist. And then her teaming with Vecna and then turning against Vecna and sacrificing her life for 11 would be another plot twist. So 3-in-1 plot twist, by far the most shock value not by far, the most shock value out of all of them, I think, unless Eddie was 10. So this plot twist is that Callie returns, teams up with Vecna, and then turns against Vecna and dies saving 11. Sort of like a cast type thing. And the reason I think this makes sense, I was literally thinking about this last night. I know I fall asleep thinking of Stranger Things theories. It's bad, okay? But the thing I was thinking about last night is that the reason this theory makes sense, I was actually thinking about it because I was planning on making this video, and I'm going to make a TikTok about this theory because I think it's really, really intriguing. The reason it makes sense that Callie returns in the first place is that if she just shows up out of nowhere, people will be like, why did she show up? How did she even know they were in danger? And what made her change her mind after all these years? It would just be like I don't know, it kind of seemed a little forced in all this stuff and like trying to fix the past problems. But if she returns because Vecna knew she existed and wanted her a part of his army, that would make a lot more sense. And then we would be like, holy shit, that's why she returned. She's a bad guy. Vecna got in her mind, possessed her. Now she's trying to kill 11. And then the plot twist of her turning into a good guy, stabbing Vecna in the back and saving 11. Holy crap. That would be an immense amount of shock value, probably the most on this list, like I said, and it would be incredible. And there would be a valid reason for her to actually return, which is because Vecna got into her mind and convinced her to return and help him. Genius. I think that would be genius, and I would love it, and it's probably my favorite one on this list. So I believe that was number 4 plot twist. Number 5 is a little bit of a different one, and as far as the surprise, the shock value would be pretty high because I don't think a lot of people would be expecting this or even seeing it, but it wouldn't be like someone returning or someone dying or whatever. It would just be 11's powers go out of control, endangering everyone, which I don't think is likely because she spent the majority of season 4 training her powers, but I just wrote it on here as a possibility because I think that would be a unique plot twist and not a lot of us would be expecting it. It's gonna be hard for the Duffers to give us stuff that we aren't already expecting because, I mean, me and myself have talked about like 300 different theories, so it's gonna be hard for them to shock me. But this would be shocking. 11's power is going out of control, endangering everyone, and she just loses it because she used so much power. That would be very interesting, and I think a unique plot twist. So that is number 5 on the list. Now, the last 2 I'm going to talk about are both about deaths, and that's why they are the last 2. So number 6 is Joyce sacrifices herself for Will. Now, shock value would be as high as it can be, pretty much, as far as a death, because nobody's expecting Joyce to die. At least I am not expecting Joyce to die. But there's been so many rumors and expectations that nobody important is gonna die besides like Murray and Karen, maybe someone like Steve, maybe 11, maybe, you know, but nobody's talking about Hopper, Joyce, Nancy, these type characters dying, Mike, because it just doesn't seem like a real possibility, you know, considering the Duffers' past decisions with this show. But if we go into season 5 and we watch Joyce Byers throw herself into a line of fire, so to speak, and sacrifice herself for her son who's gone through so much, I would lose my shit in every single way that you're thinking of right now. And then also I would be like, oh my God, I was not expecting that at all. I know I'm talking about it right now. That doesn't mean I would expect it to happen. It's on the list of plot twists for a reason. But someone like that dying, and even like Hopper sacrificing himself for 11 would be a similar situation. I'm not expecting the mom and the dad of the show to die at all. But if they did die, it would be an insane plot twist, and all of us would be talking about it for months. So that's why it's on the list, and yeah, it would break so many hearts. It would shock the world, the internet, and yeah, it would be depressing as shit, but it's I wrote it down as a possibility because that would be something that they could do where nobody was expecting, and it makes the importance of season 5 that much more important. And honestly, just viral because people would be talking about that. So that's number 6, and I think it would be insane. Number 7 is the last one I have written down, and it's even arguably more depressing than Joyce sacrificing herself for Will. Actually, it wouldn't be that. It wouldn't be as depressing as that, but damn near, because it is titled, one of the main kids dies that's not 11 or Will Byers, meaning Lucas, Mike, Dustin, pretty much just those 3, and then Max, I guess you could throw in there. If any of those 3 die, for sure, Mike, Dustin, or Lucas, if any of those 3 die, in my opinion, that's a plot twist. That's like, holy shit, I was not expecting that at all. I'm not expecting any of those 3 to die. Any of those 3 to die. If 11 dies, I'm like, okay, she sacrificed herself for the good of the world. Half of us were expecting that. And if Will dies, it'd be a similar situation to 11. It wouldn't be as expected, but we would be like, okay, I sort of saw that as a possibility. If Lucas, Dustin, or Mike died, what the actual, you know what, just happened, and why did it just happen? That's what we would be saying. So that's number 7. It would obviously be depressing as shit if any of those died. And yeah, those are the plot twists I talked about. I titled it 5 Stranger Things plot twists that could happen because 5 and Stranger Things 5, even though it was 7, it was for the good of the title, whatever. And yeah, guys, I hope you guys enjoy this video. Make sure to drop a like, subscribe, turn up post notifications, join my Discord, and comment any plot twists that you think is a possibility in season 5, because I mean, there's a lot out there that we could talk about, that we could theorize about. So let me know in the comments if I missed any that you think I should have put in here. And yeah, I guess we're just wait for the next news about Stranger Things 5. According to Twitter, it's going to be May 31st at Netflix Tudum, but now some people are saying it could be before Tudum. It's April Fool's, so they're probably just April Foolsing me, but either way, it's something to think about. And also, the next video is going to be me reacting to your fan theories. So if you have any fan theories, DM me, comment on one of my videos, whatever, and I'm going to try to put it in the video. So I appreciate you guys watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.